So I started my career as a support worker. I encountered some experiences that made me think there was a better way of doing this. Trying to go into this role with a recipe book or a set of interventions is going to set you up for failure. Why I do what I do and the principles of positive behaviour support is to improve a person's quality of life that looks at the environment around the person and puts it together as a whole picture. The goal of positive behaviour support is to reduce those behaviours that are challenging to support. But if we can prevent them from occurring in the first place, that would be fantastic, right? I supported a gentleman who was in a long stay hospital, despite being warned by the professionals around him, like, oh, don't go into the room, he might hurt you, it can be risky. We just needed somebody to listen to him and just to see him as a person. It's about making a difference to the people that we support. I think I'd still be striving to find the answers, and I'm so glad I found them when I did.
Hello and welcome to Rehability UK, the Social Care Chronicles. Today we're talking with Charlotte Jinks, the National Positive Behaviour Support Lead here at Rehability UK. Charlotte, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about yourself and your journey into positive behaviour support.
So I started my career as a support worker, working in a residential setting for adolescents.
Right.
While I was working there, I encountered some experiences that made me think there was a better way of doing this.
Right.
So I did some research and found the Masters in Applied Behaviour Analysis at the University of South Wales. So off I went and completed my Masters. From there, I was lucky to secure a job working as a behaviour consultant, working with adults with learning disabilities, autism, acquired brain injury, and mental health. So I qualified as a behaviour analyst, and from there, my journey into leadership of small teams of positive behaviour support practitioners and behaviour analysts began. Working briefly in the NHS before joining Rehability most recently.
Looking back on all your career so far, if you hadn't found PBS and you hadn't found other ways of doing things to help people, what do you think you would have ended up doing instead?
Wow. I think I would still be in a career of helping people. Sure. It's something that is important to me. I think I'd still be striving to find the answers. Yeah. And I'm so glad I found them when I did. Why I do what I do and the principles of positive behaviour support is to improve a person's quality of life. And for me, it's about a behaviour that is negatively impacting on their quality of life. And how do we change that so that they have a better experience of life?
When people are looking at those types of behaviours and what they're looking at, what really defines that? For example, how does that look with people you've supported in the past?
Okay, so I might be thinking about their access to everyday activities or things, or engaging with their family, things that are important to them. Yeah. So if there are behaviours that are getting in the way of that, either because they don't know how to, or some of their behaviour means that maybe going into a cinema or to a supermarket is a challenge for them or it's difficult, then I'd be looking at how do we support them to acquire the skills or the understanding or for the environment around them to be adapted in such a way that it makes sense for them to be able to engage in those activities.
Yeah, so what you're trying to do is trying to find ways to help people live a better life? Absolutely.
What positive behaviour support does is it looks at the environment around the person, their social environment, their physical environment, their skill set, the people that are around them, whether there's any underlying medical conditions or disabilities, and puts it together as a whole picture to understand why is this behaviour occurring and in what context is it occurring to try and support the reduction of that behaviour, but by prioritising skills development and experiences of a richer quality of life.
That's really nice, because I think when you look at some people think, well, how can we help so-and-so stop doing this? That is really looking too narrow. And what you're saying is that community matters, social context matters, the way that they're being interacted with matters, and all these other things are inputting on somebody's life.
Yes, it's the whole environment around the person, as opposed to looking at that behaviour in isolation. It's very rare that would be the solution that we'd find.
So it's great that you started out working with young people, and you've obviously worked with adults as well. So how does the PBS approach change depending on age?
For me, age isn't necessarily something that causes a change in the approach. Positive behaviour support is person-centred at its very core. So every intervention, every plan, every assessment is bespoke to that individual, regardless of what their age. So I might be working with 3 to 4 year olds on preschool skills and activities, or more senior. So probably the oldest person I've worked with maybe late into their 80s.
Right.
Using positive behaviour support approaches, thinking about their quality of life, their individual skill set, and what is important to them.
So obviously the approach of PBS has been around for a while, but when did you think it started to become more mainstream within the caring community out there?
I think positive behaviour support early introduction was around the 1980s in the United Kingdom.
Right.
So it's been going for a little while now. It's kind of gaining traction as more of the larger organisations and bodies are looking for it to be the methodology of support within social care and health settings, and even in education. So the bodies that inspect us or check in on what we're doing, they're looking to see if we're using positive behaviour support more and more now. And so because of that, providers are using it more and more. And the conversation is growing around what positive behaviour support can do for people.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So you're saying really it's been around for 40 or 50 years. So the PBS support model, and obviously a lot of people associate that with challenging behaviours, but can it be utilised and implemented on a more wider basis?
Yes, definitely. The goal of positive behaviour support is to reduce those behaviours that are challenging to support. But if we can prevent them from occurring in the first place, that would be fantastic, right? So positive behaviour support, we think of it as a tiered approach.
Sure.
So there's tiers of support that we might use to work with individuals. So we'd think about universal supports, for example. So things that just make sure that everybody within a system is able to do what they need to do, have a good quality of life, achieve their goals and meet expectations. And then more bespoke interventions might be put in for individuals that struggle with those universal supports.
Right.
So maybe there's something about those universal supports that aren't working for them. So you do something a little bit more bespoke to make sure that that individual is able to achieve their aspirations and get their needs met. But sometimes even those additional supports aren't sufficient. And that's where like a top tier of PBS, if you like, is implemented. And that might be done by someone like myself, a behaviour analyst, who would be looking at doing functional assessment to truly understand what's happening for that person and what we need to do to ensure that they can achieve their goals and aspirations. So using that tiered approach, you can kind of see how it can be used across populations. So if you think about a school setting, they might implement universal supports to ensure that the children are attending to class and getting on with their homework. But then those children that are struggling with that, they would put in an extra layer to maybe some extra coaching or something. Using a tiered approach, you can see how it would support a multitude of people.
Wow. And so you were talking about universal supports. Take me through some universal supports that could be helping people.
So in the care setting,
sure,
universal supports might be ensuring that the person is able to express choice and control over what happens in their day.
Yeah.
That, for example, meal choices or going to the supermarket, ensuring that the support is tailored and right for them. So that person matching, for example, when we're doing recruitment, making sure that the right people are recruited to the right roles to support people. So if someone's got a special interest in trains, why not recruit support workers that also have a special interest in trains?
Okay. So what you're doing is saying, okay, let's really understand what the supports are needed, ensure that they're helping people function in the social settings, get out and about when they need to, so they don't feel trapped by their circumstances. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, that's a great summary.
Yeah. So I think for me, the more I've been looking at this, it becomes more about people and communication. So what kind of actions can practitioners take to help people expand their horizons and improve their lives?
I think by taking a person-centered approach, really understanding what it is that motivates a person and what it is that a person wants to achieve or needs to achieve in order to have a good quality of life. I think trying to go into this role with a recipe book or a set of interventions that you try and apply everywhere is going to set you up for failure. You need to be able to support somebody in their context, in their life, and in what makes sense for them. And if you're trying to do a one-size-fits-all, it won't work. So practitioners really need to focus on being person-centered and what does that individual need.
You've talked about being person-centered, which is brilliant. So can you describe an instance where you followed that approach and suddenly you had a really rewarding experience of helping someone?
There's been so many throughout my career. I think some of the experiences that stick out in my mind would be one where I supported a gentleman who was in a long-stay hospital, been in for a long time, hadn't really experienced community life as an adult, and wasn't engaging with anybody trying to do an assessment with him to support him into the community. I was asked to take a look, see if I could help with the assessment, figure out how he would be best supported in the community. And despite being warned by the professionals around him, like, oh, don't go into the room, he might hurt you, it can be risky. I was determined that actually I needed to understand this gentleman and see what we could do to help. So armed with a few chocolates, I popped into his room and met with him and got some of those first snippets of engagement so that I could start to understand who he was and what he needed. And some months later, because these things aren't ever quick, but some months later he was supported to move into his own home with his own team of support workers and go out and about, go shopping, go for a walk to the park. It was just needed somebody to listen to him and just to see him as a person.
Wow. And so that was really connecting with him on a one-to-one basis.
Mm-hmm.
And what sort of things came out of the discussions that helped you get him out there into the community?
For me, it was because I felt confident that I could support him and I could understand him. It was sharing that confidence and that skill set with the support workers that were working with him.
Right.
So by empowering them to understand him and to respond to his needs, they felt comfortable and confident in to say, let's take a walk, let's get a picnic and go and see the local park. Let's try buying one thing in Tesco, that kind of thing. And by working closely with them, it developed their confidence and then in turn, gentleman's confidence for him to be able to go out and about.
Wow. So you really built a virtuous upward cycle rather than a negative downward cycle. And I think that's really such a powerful approach that you've outlined there. So when you've been working in this field and you've been working at it a while, you're obviously trying to build support networks for the people you support, which is brilliant because what you're doing is helping those people get confident to do what they do. On top of that, what sort of support networks do you need as a PBS practitioner to help you do your job?
As a behaviour analyst, we sign up to and subscribe to ethical standards, similar to a psychologist would or a doctor does. We have ethical practices and ethical standards that we must adhere to. And part of that is to engage in peer supervision and build a community around yourself of behaviour analysts that can help you or problem solve with you if you find yourself in a situation that you've never seen before. Because positive behaviour support is an evidence-based practice, it means that we should always be going to our peers and those that are experimenting and publishing to find our answers. So I feel like whenever I come to work, I have a community of behaviour analysts behind me that are helping me at all times.
So you've talked about supporting people who are practitioners and support workers. How do you go about building capacity in people to ensure that they can do what you need them to do and what the people they're supporting need?
So when I'm supporting a team of support workers to work with an individual. We'll work together to develop their positive behaviour support plan.
Yeah.
So we'll think about the strategies that we need to put into place that keeps a person in their good place. So thinking about the person that we support being able to achieve the things they want to do day to day. So those strategies might include communication strategies.
Right.
So how does the person communicate? How can we make sure we're communicating effectively with them and that it's a two-way thing? But then also thinking about the activities that the person's doing. So are they things the person enjoys that are meaningful to them? And are they meeting their needs? And then we think about predictability and structure within the day. So how do we embed that into a person's day? So I'll work with the support team to develop those strategies together, and I like to call those development days. But alongside that, I'm really working with those support workers to be problem solvers.
Okay.
Because when we're delivering training, nearly every time we'll get those what if questions about, oh, well, what if this happens? What do we do? And what if that happens? Well, what do we do? I tend to make a joke of, well, I can't plan for a helicopter landing in the back garden and Prince William coming out and asking a question, because we can't plan for all of the eventualities all of the time.
Sure.
So I need my support workers to be problem solvers and to be able to look at the situation and think about, well, what can we do within the framework of PBS and understanding the person the way that we do that can solve this concern or this issue individually, because they're the ones day to day that are working with the person. That's where it becomes important that PBS is a systems-wide approach, because not only do the support workers need to be problem solvers, but their team leaders and their managers need to facilitate that problem solving as well, to make sure that the system around the support workers is kind of set up in a way that if they ask a question or they need some extra resources or some help, that Rehability is there to provide that extra support.
Brilliant. So what you're trying to do is ensure that people can see what's in front of them, adapt what they're doing, and reference all the work they've done so far to help that person cope with whatever comes their way. And I suppose that's true of anybody's life.
Yes. And I like to say to them too that, I'm always contactable. And so an email or a phone call or a text message to ask a question to help them to solve that problem, to really sort of model that systems-wide approach for them can be really helpful too.
Fantastic. PBS seems to be quite a broad church in terms of its disciplines. What other disciplines and therapies and elements can you bring into all of you, what you do to help people?
So positive behaviour support is multidisciplinary in its approach. I don't claim to have all the answers as a behaviour analyst. We're quite good as a profession of pulling all the strings together and making coherent advice and plans for people. But I lean very much into the expertise of my colleagues in occupational therapy or speech and language therapy, the medics and the doctors and their skill set in understanding if there's an underlying medical condition for a person. So I spend a lot of my time meeting with those other professions so that I can get a coherent and cohesive support plan together for the individual we're supporting.
Brilliant. You talked a lot about professionals and working multidisciplinary, but I'm assuming families are a really important component of this. How does that work?
So I spend a lot of time also meeting with people's families and working closely alongside them to make sure that we are understanding the person that we're working with. So, for example, conducting assessment of someone who's currently in hospital. I've spent some considerable time with their family so that I can understand who was the person that got admitted into hospital and what was that all about and what has that journey been like for them, so that I can use that information to inform my design of support. And then once I've developed that PBS plan and the strategies, it goes back to the family to have a think about, did I get it right? Would we change anything? Is there anything that I could do differently or do better?
Sure.
And then when we get to reviews of support, they're very much involved and invited to review the support, tell me what's working and not working.
So you talk about it being a person-centered approach. So how does that work out in reality? How do you involve the person that you're supporting?
Wherever possible, I like to ask how they feel about or how they would like their support to go. If they're unable to communicate that with me, it'll be about how I observe their responses to support to understand actually what works for them, doesn't work for them. A PBS plan is the person's plan. I might be the person that types it all up and writes it, but it's not my plan. It's the person we're supporting. It's their plan. And so if there's things about it that don't work for them or they don't like, then we change it. It has to work for them. And they are at the centre of everything that we're doing.
So you've talked about an evidence-based approach. How has an evidence-based approach informed positive behaviour support?
A key component of positive behaviour support is the science of behaviour analysis.
Right.
So as a science, it would suggest that there's been research and papers published demonstrating effectiveness in the approaches across different populations. So because applied behaviour analysis is within positive behaviour support, we use that evidence base to develop the strategies that we use to guide our support workers day to day. There's still papers being published, so I like to keep myself up to date with what's going on. The UK Society for Behaviour Analysis has conferences and speeches that we attend that means that we're kept up to date with the latest evidence base and the latest approaches.
You've talked about a wider community of applied behaviour analysts. Which of those people have really made a positive impact on you?
I think I've been very privileged to be able to spend some time with the likes of Gary Lavigne, explaining the development of positive behaviour support as an approach and his uses of it in America. That was very special, 4 days, and he signed my book for me, which is always nice. And the UK SBA has also put on conferences by the likes of Greg Hanley, who is very modern in his thinking about behaviour analysis and how we understand the functions of behaviour. And so anything that he writes, I really do like to read.
How does an evidence-based approach, what does that mean for you on an everyday, day-to-day?
So when I start working with a person, I start by understanding who they are and where we are at today.
Yep.
What it is that we need to do to improve things or to change things for them, with them. And I'll take what I call baseline data. So where are we starting? Is there a behaviour that's occurring at the moment that we need to pay attention to? How often is it happening? What does it look like? How intense is it? Or I might look at an absence of a behaviour. So we would really like to support somebody to be able to visit the doctors. Maybe they've got a medical condition that needs some attention, but they're unable to go to the doctors. And they don't go at all at the moment. So that would be my baseline. And then I'll design a way of supporting them and train their support staff so that we can achieve those things and meet the needs that we were just talking about. And then once that's implemented, I need to make sure it's working. So I will continue to take data. Has the person gone to the doctors? How close did we get? Did that work? Is the behaviour that we were worried about, is that increasing, staying the same, or decreasing? And by measuring those things, I'll know that whether the interventions that we've put into place and the strategies that we're using, whether they're working or not. And if they're not working, it's on me to figure out why and then make the difference to change things for the person and then go from there.
And would you say that you'd have to then collect more evidence and more data to help inform your approach?
It's very much a data-led approach. So show me the data is often what I say when I'm meeting with people, because I need to know how often something is happening, what it looks like and when it's happening so that I can make a difference.
Brilliant. Now that you've been here a little while, what's really encouraged you about Rehability UK?
I think it started at my interview. I think from being interviewed by Stephen and Anita, I knew that Rehability was somewhere that I wanted to work, an organisation I wanted to join. The questions that they were asking and the way that they structured the interview kept referring to the people that we support and their description of what people get up to and the kind of support that's provided here really had a warmth to it and really showed the values of Rehability. And I knew from that first interview that I really wanted the job, and so I was really pleased when they phoned me. Now I've been in the organisation for almost 2 months now. I've had the privilege to go to a few of our services and meet some of our support workers as well as the people that we're supporting. And I've been really encouraged by the questions that I'm being asked and the things that I'm seeing, people having a great time, going out and about. Like I went to visit somebody and they weren't there because they were off out having a great time. And do you know what? That's a win. Yes, I've been really inspired by the things that I've witnessed when I've been out and about visiting services. So what I need to do now is give that some structure and give it a formality across the whole organisation. And so the hard work's already been done, really.
So you've talked a lot about how positive behaviour support is just that. So what are your initial priorities to help the people here at Rehability UK and the people we're supporting?
So I've not been here for very long, just a couple of months. And I've spent that initial time getting to know the organisation, understand what we're doing, where we're doing it. And from that, I'm able to really target my help and support to those services where I'm able to make a real difference.
Within Rehability UK, we've got a 5-year plan. And what's your views on the plan for PBS within the next 5 years?
I've been really encouraged to think about the future of positive behaviour support within Rehability. Whenever I've had conversations about it, it's been how are we going to grow positive behaviour support within the organisation? And we're working on developing a team of positive behaviour support practitioners. So kind of growing our support workers, training them in the principles and practices of positive behaviour support with recognised qualifications.
Right.
I'll be able to supervise our own in-house team to really support the breadth and depth of the organisation. And I'm really, really encouraged by this.
So where do you see the most significant changes happening in the next 5 years?
I think the development and growth of the UK Society of Behaviour Analysis is really helping the field. I think that having a recognised body that's making sure that practitioners are engaging in continuing education, are practising ethically, are being supervised and using the evidence base. I think that's really important. And I think as that community continues to grow within the UK, we'll see higher and higher standards of positive behaviour support. And I think that's really exciting. And it means that there's more behaviour analysts coming through, doing exams, qualifying, being supervised. And so I like to think that that higher quality of positive behaviour support will mean that the people we're supporting will experience a higher quality of support too.
You're going to be doing quite a bit of leadership development within Rehability UK, and you're going to be building up this team of practitioners who are really going to help us develop what we do. What's the most important thing about leadership in your view?
I think for me, compassionate leadership is really important. I think having a leader who not only knows their role and is good at what they do and leads by experience, but also understands the people that they're leading and is supportive of their growth and development and ensures that they're able to shine and they have all the things that they need within their role to ensure that they can get on with their job and do what they need to do and really achieve. For me, leadership isn't about standing at the front with a flag and saying, hey, look at me, I'm amazing. It's about really celebrating the team that I'm leading and what they're achieving.
Fantastic. There's lots of change all the time in terms of technology within our society as a whole. What sort of technology changes have you seen in PBS and how is that helping you?
We talked about data collection earlier and technology and devices that collect data is amazing. Things like, like smartwatches that can kind of monitor how much someone's moving, how much sleep they're getting. So ordinarily, I would have to rely on a person to be checking those things for someone.
Sure.
But actually, if the person we support can wear a watch that sort of monitors that data, I've got all that really great data coming in straight from the person. It's accurate. So that's really exciting. I really love Nourish that we're using at Rehability. It gives me the tools to see what a person's doing almost live. So someone that we're supporting in Devon or someone that we're supporting towards the north of the country, I can log into the system and see whether they're having a good day. Did they go and do the activities that they were planning to do? What did they have for lunch if I need to? So it's really useful for me to be able to see that live data, that live information. I can see whether the strategies we've recommended are working in real time, and then I can be responsive to that in real time. So really, really useful.
You've been working as a PBS practitioner and you've done quite a lot so far, but if someone's just starting out in the field, what advice would you give them?
Do it because you're passionate about making a difference. It's not a career that you do just for the status or the financial reward. It's about making a difference to the people that we support. And I think if you're passionate about that, then it's a great career for you.
So what advice would you give to someone who's helping support people in care right now?
Be person-centered. Focus on the person that you're supporting, their individual needs and their individual context. Just because you have an intervention that worked in one setting or with one particular person does not mean how that is going to work for the person that you're now working with. So really make sure you're focusing on the person, the individual. Charlotte,
thank you so much for coming today and telling us more about the world of positive behaviour support. It's been really great to have you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.